is that there's this place. Look down at verse 1. There's a place called the bottomless pit, and there's this star who is a supernatural person who is given the key to that pit, and the bottomless pit is filled with smoke like a furnace, and he opens the pit in verse 2. And by the way, when we get to verse 3, these horrific, hideous, locust-like demons come out. So what would be the benefit of knowing all that? Well, the Lord has what I call lessons from the demon's location. And basically it's showing that God is in control of all this. These demons are in that pit. Satan cannot let them out unless the Lord gives him the key. He is under the care and the constraint and the powerful sovereign control of God. Now you say, why doesn't he just put him in the pit? He will in chapter 20 if you read ahead. Satan is going to be consigned to that very same place. And the key is going to be turned and he won't be allowed out. That's what the 1,000-year millennium is all about. When the earth has no demon or satanic influence. And the sad thing is, if you read ahead, that they still go bad. Even in a perfect environment, humans are imperfect. And we don't need the devil or his demons to be bad. But when they're loose, we get worse. And that's what the lesson is he's showing us. Well, chapter 12 of Revelation says that Satan's ultimate longing is to destroy Israel. And the chief country for 2,600 years, whose demonic prince behind the country is called the Prince of Persia, one of Satan's highest lieutenants, is only desiring to destroy Israel. Because if you can destroy Israel, you destroy God's plan, because God says, I am going to be sharing the gospel to the whole world through Israel during the tribulation. If you can get rid of Israel, there won't be any gospel sharing during the tribulation, and there won't be any city that has all of these gates with Israel's tribe names on them and everything else. If he can just destroy it, the nation Israel. Because God says Israel will exist to the end. I'm going to preserve them. And Satan says, then I'm going to get them. You see, what we're supposed to see is how much the events in this world are tied to spiritual realm activities. Now look at the two elements that jump out of these two verses. In verse 1, there's this supernatural person that falls like a star from heaven. Well, immediately you think, stars falling? What are we talking about? Meteorites? What? But then look what the next part of verse 1 says. To him. So he is a supernatural person. And that supernatural person is called Satan in the Bible. How do we know that? Because he is the one that's the leader of the demons. Now turn to chapter 12 of Revelation. We're going to look at it here, and then at the very end we're going to conclude with chapter 12. But I want you to see, chapter 12 is the whole God's plan of the ages and showing everything he's doing, and we'll someday get there. But I just want to point a couple of parts out. Look at verse 3. And it says that a sign appeared in heaven. And behold, a great fiery red dragon. Now, we look up from our Bibles and we go, oh, now we're into science fiction or fairy tales or cartoons. Dragons? And immediately the book of Revelation sounds like it's detached. But just keep reading and you see that God is communicating a connection here. And I want to show it to you. Having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his head. Look at verse 4. This dragon, this fiery red dragon, in verse 4, his tail draws 1/3 of the stars of heaven and throws them to the earth. Oh. So in this verse, we meet a dragon. Then in the next verse, verse 4, this dragon draws 1/3 of the angels under his control. But move down to verse 7. Because now we see that war breaks out in heaven. And Michael, we know who he is, the archangel. And his angels, we know who they are. We saw that a few weeks ago, the good angels. Fought with the dragon. And the dragon and his angels. So all of a sudden we see that this tail in verse 4, taking 1/3 of the stars, is God explaining to us that of all of the angels, these supernatural creatures that never sleep, that are indestructible and so powerful we don't even understand how powerful each individual angel is, Satan got 1/3 of them. And he drew them under his control. But it doesn't end there. Look at verse 9. Now, God connects Genesis with Revelation and everything in between. And here are the key points. And I just wrote them down for you. This is the Rosetta Stone. You know, the Rosetta Stone that Napoleon's archaeologists found that finally we could decipher hieroglyphics. Sometimes the Bible's a little hieroglyphic because there's so many pieces scattered around, but all of a sudden God explains it all. And what he says is, just track down through verse 9. He says, so the great dragon, so this fiery red great dragon we saw earlier in 3, was cast out. Now look at all this. Satan is the dragon. Satan is the serpent of old. Now think Genesis 3. Think of Eve in the garden with the most beautiful creature, this incredibly beautiful, serpents after the fall and after the curse and sin are committed to being on the ground, and most people hate them. But they previously were beautiful, intelligent, talking, glistening creatures. And Eve was captivated by this creature who was being used as a channel through which Satan spoke. And he's called the serpent from old. So that's the Genesis 3, Eve deceived in the Garden of Eden. But it doesn't stop there. He's also called the devil. That's chapter 4 of Matthew. That's the one who came face to face with Jesus and tempted him to disobey God. Same one. So the dragon is the serpent. He's the devil. He's also the wicked one. He is the one who John talks about. The whole world lies in the arms of the wicked one. And he is the one who wants to undermine and thwart and derail God's plan. But it doesn't end there. If you keep reading, the devil is Satan who deceives. He's the deceiver. He's cast to the earth. His angels were cast. Look at verse 10. Now salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come for and here's another title, the accuser of the brethren. This is the one that went to Job and buffeted him and gave him boils and killed all of his kids and destroyed all of his possessions because he was accusing God of his saints. He's the accuser to God of the brethren, of the saints. It's the same one. He is the dragon, the serpent, the devil, the wicked one, the accuser, and he is the fallen and twisted version of the greatest of all the angels, and his name was Lucifer, the light. If you know Latin, lux lucis, Lucifer is the light-bearing one. He was the burning, bright, highest created being, and now he's warped and twisted as Satan. Here in one verse, God ties together the cunning serpent of the garden that drew mankind into sin with the accuser of Job, with the devil of Christ's temptation, with Satan the adversary of all that God is doing. And all these various depictions are of Lucifer, who fell to become Satan the devil. And they're united in one verse. It's like the Rosetta Stone. But all that to say this, Satan is dangerous. I said all those things just to show you that all the malignity that covers all the chapters of the Bible come to a simple head. Satan is dangerous. No, we know that, but we just don't sometimes think what that means.